Have you ever had to hide who you are to protect who you love? Sometimes the greatest acts of courage happen in silence. Sometimes love means lying, and sometimes lying becomes the only truth that can save a life. This is the story of a woman who became invisible by choice. A woman who traded her identity for something more precious than her own safety. A woman who discovered that the uniform of a servant could become the armor of a guardian angel. The employment agency smelled like desperation and cheap coffee. Isabella Martinez sat in the waiting room, her hands trembling as she filled out forms with a name that wasn't hers. Maria Santos. That's who she was now. A woman with no past worth mentioning, no skills beyond cleaning and cooking. But Isabella knew better. She knew that sometimes the most important battles are fought by those who appear to have no power at all. The coordinator looked over the false documents without suspicion. Who would lie about being ordinary? There's a position, the woman said softly. A widower with a 7-year-old daughter. The little girl has nightmares. Her mother died 2 years ago, and she doesn't trust easily. The last 3 housekeepers didn't last a month. Isabella was already nodding, already signing the contract with a hand that had once signed million-dollar deals and was now committing to dusting furniture for minimum wage. That night, as Isabella packed her belongings, she held a photograph she should have burned months ago. A little girl with dark curls and serious eyes, a girl who looked remarkably like the daughter she was about to meet. The resemblance wasn't coincidence. She was about to enter the Baldwin mansion not as Maria Santos, the humble housekeeper, but as Isabella Martinez, former CEO, former wife, former mother, and current target of the most dangerous man she'd ever known. But David Baldwin and his daughter Lily didn't need to know that. They needed protection. The mansion's iron gates opened with a mechanical hum that sounded like a prison door. Security cameras tracked her movement. David Baldwin was a man who understood danger. He just didn't know that he had invited it right through his front door. The first morning Isabella stood before the bathroom mirror, transforming herself. She pinned her hair back severely, slipped on the grey uniform dress, buttoned it all the way to her throat. The apron came next, but as Isabella tied the strings, she did so with the precision of a soldier donning battle gear. The kitchen became her command center. From there she could see the main entrance, the stairs, and the large windows that gave her a clear view of the street. She memorized every angle, every blind spot, every possible entry point. The coffee was ready when David came downstairs at exactly 7:15. He paused, surprised. "You're early," he said, and Isabella heard the wariness in his voice. "I wanted to have everything ready for you and your daughter," Isabella replied, in accented English she'd practiced for weeks. "Is there anything special she likes for breakfast?" Something in his expression softened. "She doesn't eat much in the mornings, not since... Perhaps I could make something small, something that smells like home." David studied her face. The last housekeeper tried to force her to eat. Lily hid in her room for 3 days. "I would never force a child to do anything. Children need to feel safe first. Everything else comes after." Before he could respond, they heard it. A child crying softly, hopelessly, in the way that children cry when they've learned that no one comes to comfort them. David's face went pale. "She won't let anyone near her when she's like this." Isabella was already moving toward the stairs, following the sound of heartbreak toward a little girl who needed exactly what Isabella needed. Someone to protect, someone to love, someone to save. At the top of the stairs, she knocked softly outside a bedroom door painted with fading princesses. "Lily, my name is Maria. I'm going to be helping your daddy take care of the house." Silence. Then, so quietly, "Go away." "I know about nightmares," Isabella continued, sitting down with her back against the door. "I know how they make everything feel scary, even when you're awake." "Do you have nightmares too?" Isabella closed her eyes. "Sometimes. About losing people I love. About not being strong enough to protect them." The door opened just a crack. One brown eye peered out. "You don't look like the other ladies," Lily whispered. "What do the other ladies look like?" "Scary. Like they think I'm broken." Isabella's heart shattered and rebuilt itself. "You're not broken, sweetheart. You're just healing. And healing takes time. The door opened wider. Lily was small for 7, with dark curls that reminded Isabella painfully of another little girl. But it was the eyes that took her breath away, old eyes in a young face. "Do you know any good dreams? The kind that chase away the bad ones?" That's how David found them an hour later. Isabella sitting cross-legged on Lily's bedroom floor, both of them building a castle out of blocks, while Isabella told stories about brave princesses who protected kingdoms with kindness instead of swords. He stood in the doorway watching his daughter laugh for the first time in months and wondered why this quiet woman felt more like family than any of the professionals he'd hired. What David didn't know was that Isabella was thinking the same thing, that for the first time in 3 years she felt like she was home. But outside, a black sedan drove slowly past the house. Inside that car, a man with cold eyes was making phone calls, asking questions about the Baldwin family's new employee. The hunt was getting closer. David Baldwin had built his life on schedules and systems, a routine designed to keep grief at bay, to create the illusion that life was manageable, predictable, safe. But Isabella's presence disrupted everything. She moved through his house like water, flowing around obstacles, making things better without anyone noticing. The flowers on the kitchen table, the sound of Lily's laughter during what used to be the longest hour of the day. And David found himself unsettled, listening for Isabella's footsteps, making excuses to work from home more often. "Maria helped me with my homework," Lily announced one evening. "She explained fractions better than anyone. She made it make sense." David watched Isabella's face carefully. He saw expertise, understanding, the kind of quick analytical mind that didn't typically belong to housekeepers. That evening, after Lily was asleep, David found Isabella in the kitchen. "Where did you work before?" he asked. Isabella's hands stilled. "Different places. Nothing worth talking about." "Isabella." She froze. He'd used her real name without thinking. "Maria," she corrected quickly. "My name is Maria." David stepped closer. "Is it?" For a moment the mask slipped. He saw fear in her eyes. Real, bone-deep terror. "I'm not anyone important," she whispered. "I'm just someone who needs a safe place to—" She stopped, but David heard what she hadn't said. A safe place to hide. "From what?" Isabella looked up at him. "From people who think I'm someone I'm not. People who won't believe that sometimes a person just wants to disappear." "You're safe here," he said. "Whatever it is, you're safe." Isabella's laugh was bitter. "No one's safe, Mr. Baldwin. We just pretend we are until—" The motion sensor light outside flickered on. Both of them turned toward the window, where a figure stood at the edge of the property. Isabella went completely still. David saw her body change, saw the way she positioned herself between him and the window, saw her hand move instinctively toward the knife block. The figure stood there for another moment, then melted back into the shadows. "I should check the locks," she said quietly. As she moved through the house, David watched her examine windows and doors with the thoroughness of someone who understood security systems, escape routes, the kinds of details that kept people alive. And he realized that Isabella hadn't just come to his house looking for work. She'd come looking for somewhere to make a stand. Marcus Volkov had been patient for 3 years. Isabella Martinez had been thinking like prey for 36 months. But prey, no matter how clever, eventually made mistakes. The black SUV across from the Baldwin mansion was one of 6 vehicles he rotated through the neighborhood. But Isabella had noticed. "Pull back for now," Volkov instructed his driver. "But keep surveillance on the little girl's school. Children make mothers careless." Inside the Baldwin house, Isabella felt the familiar chill that meant death was circling closer. But this time she wasn't just protecting herself. This time there were people she'd grown to love in the line of fire. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Pretty house, pretty family, pretty lies. Isabella's blood turned to ice. Volkov had found her, but worse, he knew about David, about Lily. She moved toward the sliding door. "Lily, sweetheart, why don't we pick flowers closer to the house?" But Lily was already running toward the fence, chasing a butterfly. Isabella reached her just as another text arrived. "She looks just like Sophia. Same age too. Funny how history repeats itself." This time Isabella couldn't hide her reaction, because Sophia had been Isabella's daughter, 7 years old when Volkov's men had taken her while Isabella was testifying in a federal courtroom about his money laundering operation, 7 years old when she'd died in a warehouse fire. "Maria," Lily's voice seemed far away. "Are you crying?" Isabella forced herself to breathe. "Just the pollen. It makes my eyes water." But as she led Lily back, Isabella was already calculating. Exit routes, timeline. She had maybe 48 hours. Inside, David was ending his conference call. One look at Isabella's face told him something was wrong. "Lily, why don't you put those flowers in water? I need to talk to Maria." Once his daughter was out of earshot, David moved closer. "What happened?" "I need to give you my notice." The words came out too quickly. David caught her arm gently. "Someone found you." Isabella's composure cracked. "I never meant to put you and Lily in danger. I thought I could protect you without them finding me." "Are you a good person?" David asked quietly. The question surprised her. "What? Are you a good person? Do you care about Lily, about me?" "More than I should," Isabella whispered. "More than I can afford to. Then I don't care who's looking for you. I care about what I see every day. A woman who loves my daughter. A woman who's brought life back to this house." Isabella shook her head. "You don't understand. These people don't negotiate. They don't show mercy." "Then we'll be ready for them." "David." "My name is David, not Mr. Baldwin, and your name is Isabella, not Maria, and whatever's coming, we face it together." For the first time in 3 years, Isabella felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. But outside, the black SUV had returned. And this time, Volkov himself was behind the wheel. That night, Isabella sat on the edge of Lily's bed, trying to keep her voice steady as she told stories that had once been truths. "Once upon a time," she began, "there was a princess who lived in a beautiful kingdom. She had a little girl who laughed like music and made friends with every butterfly in the royal garden. What was the princess's job? She helped catch bad people who stole money from good families, but one day the princess discovered that the most dangerous thief was someone everyone trusted. So she gathered evidence and told the truth about him in the royal court. Did they arrest him? They tried to, but the bad man had friends, dangerous friends. What happened to the princess? She had to run away, far, far away, to protect her little girl." Lily sat up. "Did the little girl go with her?" Isabella's hands stilled. "No, sweetheart, the little girl couldn't come." "Why not?" "Because sometimes when you fight monsters, they hurt the people you love most, to punish you." Lily was quiet. Then she reached out and touched Isabella's cheek, wiping away a tear. The princess must have been very brave, and very sad. After Lily fell asleep, Isabella found David waiting in the kitchen. "Sophia," he said quietly. "That was your daughter's name." Isabella nodded, unable to speak. "Tell me what happened." And Isabella did. She told him about Markus Volkov, about the money laundering operation, about the morning she'd testified, presenting evidence that would have sent Volkov to prison for life, about coming home to find her house empty, her daughter gone. She told him about the 3 days of silence, about the warehouse fire that took Sophia's life, about 3 years of running. "He's not taking Lily," David said firmly. "David, you don't understand what he's capable of." "I understand perfectly. He kills children to hurt the people who threaten him, and monsters don't get to win. I could leave tonight. He might follow me instead of—" "No, running didn't save Sophia. It won't save Lily either. If Volkov wants a fight, he'll get one. But this time, you're not facing him alone." Outside, a car engine started in the darkness. Volkov was done watching. But for the first time in 3 years, Isabella wasn't facing it alone. The next morning came too soon. Isabella woke before dawn, standing at the kitchen window, watching David's garden come alive with first light. "You're up early," David said from the doorway. "I couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about what comes next." David moved to the coffee maker. "Maybe we just live, day by day." "David, I know what you're going to say, But what if we're stronger together than apart? Isabella wanted to argue. But then David stepped closer, and she found herself breathing in the scent of his soap. Isabella. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "I need to tell you something," she whispered. "I came here to hide, but you and Lily made me remember who I used to be. Someone who believed in justice, someone who believed in love." David reached up, touched her face gently. "Or you were right the first time." But before she could respond, the security alarm began to wail. David reached for his phone, pulling up the security cameras. Someone cut the fence in the back garden. But Isabella was looking at a different camera. 3 black SUVs positioned to block any escape route. "David," she said quietly, "get Lily now." "What?" "It's him. It's Volkov." Upstairs, they could hear Lily stirring. "Stay with her," Isabella instructed, moving toward the back door. "Lock yourselves in the safe room. Don't come out until—" "I'm not leaving you." Isabella turned back to him, fierce and determined. "You have to. Because if something happens to Lily, I won't survive it. Do you understand? I need you to protect her, so I can protect both of you." For a moment they stared at each other. The alarm continued to wail. Then David kissed her, desperate, fierce, full of all the words they hadn't had time to say. When they broke apart, Isabella's eyes were bright with tears. "Go," she whispered. David ran up the stairs, while Isabella turned toward the men who had come to finish what they'd started 3 years ago. But this time she wasn't running. This time she was making a stand. The safe room was hidden behind a bookshelf in David's bedroom. As he carried Lily inside, they could hear sounds, footsteps, voices, the methodical sound of a search. Lily pressed close to her father. "Where's Maria?" David closed his eyes. Through the monitor, they could see Isabella by the sliding door, moving with trained grace. "She's making sure we're safe." "She's scared," Lily whispered. "She gets the same look Sophia used to get." David went still. "What did you say?" "Sophia. In Maria's pictures." "What pictures, Lily?" Lily pulled something from her pocket, a small photograph. A little girl with dark curls and laughing eyes, 7 years old. "She keeps it in her jewelry box," Lily said. "I wasn't supposed to look, but how long have you known that Maria isn't just Maria?" Lily looked up at him with eyes far too old for 7. "Since the first day. She cried when she looked at me." On the monitor, they watched Isabella move through the kitchen, checking angles, preparing. "She lost her little girl," Lily said, "like you lost Mommy. That's why she understands about nightmares." "The bad man who took Sophia," Lily continued. "He's here now, isn't he?" Before David could answer, they heard glass breaking, the sliding door being forced open. Then Isabella's voice. "Hello, Marcus. You're early?" Cold laughter came through the monitor. "Isabella Martinez, I have to admit I'm impressed. 3 years of hiding, and you choose to surface for a widower and his daughter." "I chose to stop running." "How touching, and how stupid." David watched the screen. Isabella stood in the center of the kitchen, hands visible, posture relaxed, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "You killed Sophia to hurt me," Isabella said quietly. "But you made a mistake. You thought that would break me, didn't it? For a while, but then I found something worth protecting again." Volkov stepped into the camera's view. Average height, expensive suit, empty eyes. "The child upstairs looks remarkably like Sophia. Remarkable coincidence. Leave her out of this, But I can't do that. You cost me a great deal, money, time, associates who are now in prison because of your testimony." Isabella's hands moved slightly. "I was right." "Were you? Sophia still died. You still ran. I still rebuilt everything you destroyed. And what's that? The same thing I did to Sophia, but this time you get to watch." Then Isabella moved. David had never seen anyone move that fast. She rolled behind the kitchen island, came up with her gun, and fired. But Volkov was gone, moved with impossible speed. "Professional training," came his voice. "How interesting." Isabella moved through the kitchen with military precision. "It doesn't matter. I brought enough men to handle a small army. This house is surrounded, and I have all day." In the safe room, Lily looked up at her father. "We have to help her." "Lily, we can't. It's too dangerous. She came here to protect us. Now it's our turn." David looked at his daughter and saw strength, courage. "What do you want to do?" Lily smiled. "I want to save our family." The silence in the kitchen stretched. Isabella remained crouched, every sense alert, every instinct screaming that this was wrong. Volkov didn't make frontal assaults on suburban homes in daylight. This was something else. "You're wondering why I came myself." Volkov's voice drifted from the living room. Isabella shifted position, watching multiple doorways. "The truth is, I've grown rather fond of our little game." A sound from upstairs. Barely audible, but Isabella heard it. Her blood turned to ice. "You have 30 seconds before my associates light the charges they've placed throughout the building." "Marcus!" Isabella's voice was softer now, almost pleading. "You want me. Let them go and you can have your revenge." "But I already have my revenge. I'm about to watch you burn alive, knowing you failed to save another child." David saw Isabella's composure crack. Her hands trembled. Because Volkov was right. Even if she killed him, the building would still burn. Isabella was about to fail again. That's when Lily spoke. "Excuse me," she said politely, "but I think you made a mistake." Everyone turned to look at the 7-year-old standing beside her father's chair, hands free, voice calm. "What mistake?" Volkov snapped. "You said you had men on the stairs and by the windows, but I've been counting voices, and I only heard 3 different people, and now there's only one." In the sudden silence, they heard it. Or rather, didn't hear it. The building was quiet. No footsteps, no voices. "Where are your friends, Marcus?" Isabella asked, something dangerous in her voice now. Volkov's face went pale. "That's impossible." "Is it? Did you really think I came here alone? Did you think David was the only federal agent who cared about what happened to me?" David felt his heart stop. "Isabella. Task Force Prometheus, specialized in bringing down international crime syndicates, led by Agent Sarah Chen, who's been tracking your movements for 3 years. The color drained from Volkov's face. "You see, Marcus, the thing about burning down buildings is that it requires a lot of preparation. The kind of activity that shows up beautifully on thermal imaging satellites. From somewhere in the building they heard new sounds. Boots on stairs, professional voices. Federal agents, building is surrounded." Volkov's gun wavered, confusion and rage in his eyes. "You're lying. This is another bluff." "Maybe. Why don't you find out?" Then from above, "Isabella Martinez, Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. Are you secure?" "Getting there," Isabella called back, and finally allowed herself to breathe. Volkov's gun dropped, the numb shock of a man who realized the game was over. "It doesn't matter. Even if you arrest me, there are others." "Maybe," Isabella said, moving closer to David and Lily. "But they'll have to get past us first, and we're not running anymore." David stood slowly, pulling his daughter close. "Are we safe?" Isabella looked at this man who had protected her for 3 years, at this child who had shown extraordinary courage, at the family she had almost lost. "Yes," she said, and for the first time in 3 years, she meant it. "We're safe." As federal agents flooded the building and Marcus Volkov was led away in handcuffs, Isabella knew the hardest part was still ahead. Now they had to figure out how to build a life together, how to trust again when love had been the most dangerous truth of all. 3 weeks later, Isabella stood in the kitchen, making coffee in the same routine they'd shared before everything exploded. But everything was different now. The newspapers had been full of the story. What they didn't report was the cost. The sleepless nights when Lily woke screaming. The way David flinched when car doors slammed. The careful distance Isabella maintained, unsure of her place. "You don't have to stay." Isabella turned to find David in the doorway. He looked tired, older. "I know," she said quietly. "The task force offered you your old job back. Full reinstatement." Agent Chen had made the offer 3 times, a chance to return to her old life. "And you think I should take it?" David moved closer, but not close enough to touch. "I think you should do whatever makes you happy." "What about what makes you happy?" For 3 weeks, They'd been dancing around the truth. You want to know what makes me happy? David's voice was rougher now. Waking up to the sound of you making coffee, listening to you and Lily laugh together. But I also know what it costs you to be here, and I won't ask you to do that forever. Isabella turned to face him, and David saw something new in her expression. Peace. Do you know what I thought about when Volkov had that gun pointed at Lily's head? David shook his head. I thought about Sophia, about the last conversation we had before I left for court. She asked me why I couldn't just stay home and make pancakes like other mummies. Isabella's voice caught. And I told her that sometimes people have to do hard things to protect the people they love, that sometimes being brave means leaving. Isabella. I was wrong. Being brave doesn't mean leaving. It means staying. It means choosing to build something beautiful, even when the world wants to tear it down. David stepped closer. Sophia died because I thought justice was more important than family, but Lily lived because I finally understood that family is the most important justice of all. What are you saying? Isabella touched his face gently. I'm saying I don't want my old job back. I don't want to hunt monsters or testify in court. What do you want? I want to make coffee in this kitchen every morning for the next 40 years. I want to help Lily with her homework and worry about normal things like parent-teacher conferences. David's breath caught. Isabella, I want to marry you. Not because we've been through trauma together, but because I love you. Because I love the life we've built. David stared at her. Then he started laughing. What's funny? I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, opened it to reveal a simple diamond ring. I kept trying to find the perfect moment, but every time I convinced myself you'd rather be somewhere else. Isabella looked at the ring. Are you asking? Isabella Martinez, Maria Santos, whoever you want to be. David dropped to one knee. Will you marry me? The answer came from the stairs. She says yes. They turned to see Lily perched on the bottom step, grinning. Lily Rose Baldwin, how long have you been eavesdropping? Long enough to know that Maria is going to be my real mom now. I already picked out a dress. It has to be pink. Isabella looked down at this child who had saved them all with her courage. Pink it is. She slipped David's ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. 6 months later, Isabella Martinez Baldwin stood before a different kind of tribunal. The federal courthouse was nothing like the pharmaceutical plant where her old life had ended. Here there were no shadows to hide in, only truth. State your name for the record, the prosecutor requested. Isabella Martinez Baldwin. It felt strange to say it out loud. Her real name, her married name, the identity that survived all the others. In the gallery, David sat with Lily, both dressed in their best clothes, there to witness the final chapter. Marcus Volkov sat at the defendant's table, smaller somehow than he had seemed. Prison had diminished him. The questions continued for 2 hours. Isabella answered each one clearly, precisely. She described the evidence, the bank records, the pattern of violence. She described Sophia's kidnapping and death. She described 3 years of running. She described the morning she'd decided to stop running. Mrs. Martinez Baldwin, the defense attorney said, isn't it true that you falsified federal documents? Yes. And that you lived under that false identity for 3 years, deceiving everyone? Isabella looked at David, saw him nod encouragingly. I used a false identity to protect myself and my family, but I never deceived anyone about who I was inside. I never pretended to be anything other than someone who loved them. But you did lie. I survived, Isabella said quietly. Sometimes survival requires difficult choices. When the testimony was over, when Volkov had been sentenced to life in prison, when the reporters had left, Isabella found herself with David and Lily on the courthouse steps. How does it feel? David asked. To have it really over? Isabella looked at her husband, at her daughter, at the life they'd built together. Like coming home, she said. That evening they had dinner in the garden, the same garden where Lily had once picked flowers while Isabella watched for threats. But now the garden felt different, safe, peaceful. Tell me a story, Lily requested, as Isabella tucked her into bed. "What kind of story?" "A true one, about princesses and brave knights and happy endings." Isabella smiled, brushing Lily's curls away. "Once upon a time there was a princess who lost everything. She ran away to a far-off land where no one knew who she was. Was she scared? Very scared. For a long time she thought running was the only way to stay safe. But then she met a kind king who had also lost someone precious, and his daughter, who was the bravest little knight in the entire kingdom. What happened then? The princess realized she didn't want to keep running. She wanted to stay and help protect the king and his daughter, even when it was dangerous. Lily yawned, snuggling into her blankets. "And they lived happily ever after?" Isabella looked toward the doorway, where David stood listening. "They lived bravely ever after," Isabella corrected gently, "which turned out to be even better than happy." As Lily drifted off, Isabella felt David's hand slip into hers. "No regrets," he whispered. Isabella thought about the life she'd left behind, the career she'd given up, the woman she'd been before. "Just one," she said finally. David's face fell. "What?" Isabella smiled, the kind of smile that held 3 years of healing and a lifetime of love yet to come. "I regret that it took me so long to find you." David kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promises about tomorrow. Outside their window, the street was quiet and safe. No black SUVs, no men with cold eyes, no reasons to run or hide. Isabella Martinez Baldwin, David Baldwin, Lily Baldwin. A family built on truth, sustained by love, protected by the kind of courage that comes from the simple decision to stay, to fight, to choose each other again and again. In the end, that was the strongest armor of all, the identity that survives truth, the love that conquers fear, the family that chooses to be brave together. And if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever had to choose between safety and love, remember Isabella's story. Remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop running. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply deciding that you're worth fighting for, that the people you love are worth protecting, that the life you've built together is worth defending. Because in the end, love doesn't require perfection. It doesn't demand that you be fearless or strong or certain of what comes next. It only asks that you stay, that you choose each other, that you believe tomorrow can be better than yesterday, even when yesterday was full of pain. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever had to hide who you are to protect the people you love? Have you ever discovered that sometimes the greatest courage is found in the quietest moments? Share your story in the comments. Because every story of survival, of love, of choosing to stay when everything tells you to run, every one of those stories matters. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love is always worth fighting for, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about ordinary people who discover extraordinary courage. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the hardest choices. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from admitting you need help. And sometimes the person you're meant to protect ends up saving you instead. Until next time, remember that you are seen, you are valued, your story matters, and love always wins in the end.